Hello everyone, I'm Carthu and welcome back to the dojo. Today let's discuss the actual first episode of My Hero Academia Season 3 because, let's face it, the last one was fairly fillery. But, on a positive note, this episode is a million times better. It's honestly great, and it's such a good way to start this arc, which has a fantastic spree of fights within it. So this arc is going to be great. I've read the manga, I'm not going to spoil anything, don't worry, and just be excited, because we're getting into the good stuff. So, I just want to talk about a few things in this episode. I don't think we need to go through every minute detail, again, because I know where the plot is headed. Me speculating on the plot of this season would literally be me just using my memory, and just spewing out the information that actually happens. I wouldn't want to do that to you guys. Well, to begin with, we see that the League of Villains is up to their no-good deeds again, and they're trying to plan something, some sort of attack. They seem to know what's going on with the school trip, the summer training camp, and they seem to be ready to, attack it. Very interesting stuff, of course, because obviously, with the League of Villains attacking, fights are going to happen, and fights are great, but it's also great to see them as characters interact, because they are meant to be, and are portrayed very well as, the polar opposites of our main cast. And that's really excellent. It's always nice to see them, because it reminds us of what the others in the series believe, the people who aren't on the side of justice and heroism and all might. We have their beliefs, and they're constantly being shown to us. And this is a topic that we'll come to again later in the video. But something that I criticized in the last episode literally was done here, and could have been just what they did last episode the way I said it, because this is exactly what they did. During the entrance to the Forest of Beasts, the students were dropped off at one end, the lodge, or the cabin, wherever they're staying, is at the other end, the training facility. That training facility is so far away, they said it would take you 3 hours to get there, and then later on it was revealed that it would take 3 hours to get there if you were pro heroes like them. This was the teachers and the instructors of this training camp who said 3 hours. And it ended up taking them like a solid 8 hours. It was pretty crazy. And honestly, when we had the fight with the mud beasts, which were created by one of the teachers, those mud beasts showed off literally everybody's quirk. Every single person's quirk was used to defeat those mud beasts over a constant stream of battles. I have some screenshots on the screen, and think about it. This is a way that you can show what each student's quirk is without going as far as just showing flashbacks and saying, this is his quirk, this is his name. Just show it on the screen. You know what I mean? If you have to write their name on the screen or something, or have some voice overlay, that's fine, but this could be the scene where, the two cat ladies, who I always forget the name of, they could be like, Aizawa, what are the quirks of your students? Do you think they'll be able to, tackle this situation? And this could be a filler scene, obviously, because it wasn't in the manga. The manga's ongoing, no need to rehash. And then Aizawa could be like, oh yes, we have, Todoroki with half hot, half cold. We have bakugou with explosion, and so on and so forth. We don't need to have these, overlaid scenes in a filler episode that's already fillery and should have been a slice of life episode with some, cool swimming dynamics involved. Instead, we got this sort of weird, weirdly paced thing. And I don't want to ramble about the last episode too much, because honestly, Hero Aka deserves better than the first episode that it got for its Season 3. But overall, I think it was pretty tolerable, and I mean, this episode was just fantastic. I mean, it was basically right out of the manga. There was a lot of scenes that just instantly recognizable. Instantly, I thought back to the manga, and it was incredible. I really thought this was a really well done episode, and it shows their commitment to make a good product when it comes to the actual source material. Because, just so you guys know, the source material for this is like having the source material for Dragon Ball or Dragon Ball Z, where, as much as people may criticize Toriyama's writing, his angle work, his perspective shots, his drawings from unique and interesting positions where the camera, the reader, is almost looking at things from a weird director's lens because it has such an interesting angle and shot composition to it. Toriyama was a master of drawing manga. Despite him not always being on model 100% of the time, his art conveyed emotions throughout its work consistently because of his unique use of angles and choreography and so on and so forth. And honestly, Horikoshi is also a master of this. His shots are extremely dynamic, extremely detailed, and so lifelike. They have such a nice composition to them. They translate perfectly to a directorial decision in an animation. You can even see this sort of inspiration he has from Akira Toriyama, as most shonen manga could do, with his drawing of Goku. I mean, he drew Goku for an anniversary book for Dragon Ball. He really is inspired by the Dragon Ball franchise. And I think, it's not surprising that a lot of people are, but people forget that though the story is basic compared to modern shonen, I mean, Hiro Aka has Dragon Ball story beat tenfold. The manga composition, that is something that Akira Toriyama, again, was basically godly at. He's one of the best in the manga industry when it comes to drawing an interesting, dynamic-looking manga. Anyway, back on track, though, this really does show in these shot compositions how Horikoshi is also a dynamic mangaka, and it's just beautiful. I mean, every close-up, every detail, once you see those manga-style shading lines come into effect in full force, and you see those close-up, and you just know everything is looking crazy, like almost a visual, moving version of the manga, that's when you know this is just straight out of the book. I mean, honestly, there's a lot that's just directly ripped, and it works because he's so good. So, moving on from that, we have what's going to become an interesting dynamic. The actual dynamic here of Kota. And, his parents were killed. He doesn't like heroes anymore because he was too young to understand why they got killed and why people were praising that death and why, anybody would think, oh, this is a good thing. He just couldn't understand it. And honestly, that does make sense when you think about it, right? But the real big part here is that Midoriya is also conflicted by this, where it was obvious to him that being a hero and dying a hero's death was such a good and honorable and noble thing. To this child who lost his parents to that life, to that style of living, to that heroic, attitude, the hero's death, it wouldn't seem that great. And he says it himself, he has to just sit back and say nothing. He can listen to these beliefs. And we also get a flash of Shigaraki, who also had these very radical, very unique, very different ideals to someone like Deku. And as I said in my last video, again, the fact that the show starts with this is the story of how Midoriya became the greatest hero, it doesn't feel like we can go down the road of him challenging his own ideologies against these ideologies. I mean, we can, but doesn't it just end up with him back at that spot? And the same thing with any scene of him nearly dying, but of course we know he won't die. I mean, it's a shonen, for crying out loud. It's not that sad in the end, of course. They always have fairly happy endings. So Midoriya is not only coasting through dangers via plot armor, he's also coasting through ideological challenges via plot armor, because the ideologies that would challenge him are ones that would supersede or go against the aspiration to be the greatest hero. And if we know he is the greatest hero, if he's becoming the greatest hero, then those ideologies can never come through to fruition within his own self. Now, that does not mean that any other character cannot fall to that. Maybe Todoroki falls to it, maybe Bakugou falls to it, maybe even Ida falls to it, but I doubt Ida would. And, we have a whole slew of characters who could fall to these diverse and different ideologies that may not necessarily be bad or good, but just different. And that's an interesting bridge I'd like to see crossed at some point, because unfortunately that's the one flaw with Hero Academia, is that it sort of falls flat on its ideologies, because even though they are conflicted ideologies, they never sort of impact each other's ideologies. Instead, you're sort of just two brick walls looking at each other, knowing you'll never knock each other over. But if they were, say, two dominoes or something, where one might be able to topple the other, that would seem a lot more engaging and a lot more interesting. And I'd like to see that character dynamic done with the side cast, since I don't think it's possible to do it well with Midoriya at this point, because he's just too well established as becoming the greatest hero after this point. Otherwise, though, the episode ends right where the good stuff is about to begin, them training their quirks. And that's going to be such a cool arc, guys. It was one of the shortest bits in the manga that I wish was expanded, and I think in an anime you might see it expanded, and that would be great, because their individual training to become stronger, better, faster, make, Bakugou's explosions bigger, Deku's punches harder, Todoroki's ice and fire hotter and colder, and being able to use these powers under the worst conditions that otherwise would hurt their powers. This would be amazing to see more fleshed out in the actual anime. That's what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping next episode honestly just turns into like this awesome training episode that leaves us on a cliffhanger into the next episode, whatever that may be, as if I don't know. But yeah, guys, honestly, this is a great episode. I really enjoyed it, and don't be surprised if most Hero Academia episodes get a great or a good from me. They're very rarely ones I don't like, and honestly, it's such a well-paced shonen because it's a seasonal anime that we're not going to have any of these slogging issues that other shows like, say, Naruto, or even, the critically acclaimed One Piece, or, the critically pandered Dragon Ball, get. So, that's it for today, guys. What do you guys think? Leave your opinions and counterpoints in the comments down below. And subscribe if you want more anime videos. But for now, video outro!